My name is Isla, 32 years old, living in Phoenix, Arizona. 6 years ago I met Logan at a local art fair. He was standing by an oil painting booth, passionately talking about his dream of becoming a millionaire artist. His eyes glowing with excitement. At the time, I was working as an HR manager for a pharmaceutical company, earning a stable income, living a life as tidy as a well-organized drawer. But I fell for Logan's free-spirited charm. I used to think maybe I needed someone like him to break the monotony of my well-ordered world. We moved in together after less than 8 months of dating. The house I was still paying off, a legacy from my grandfather, became our shared home. But for the next 6 years, I was the only one financially holding that roof over our heads. I'm not exaggerating. Every penny of the mortgage, every electric and water bill, every meal, every car repair or tire replacement, I paid for it all. Logan once had a full-time job in retail but quit after 3 months because he couldn't stand the dull routine of a 9-to-5. Since then, he threw himself into every breakthrough opportunity, launching a YouTube channel about street food despite not knowing how to cook, then live streaming games though no one watched, then diving into NFTs, convinced he was catching the next big wave. The last time, he lost nearly $3,000 in a single week investing in a coin called Lunar Corgi. I had burned out more than once but kept pushing through. Logan always had a way of saying things that softened me. "Just believe in me a little longer," he'd say, gripping my hand. And I did believe. I believed this time would be different. That the man I loved would finally find his path. But as the years passed, what I got was a boyfriend glued to his computer screen, wearing headphones like he was on a national mission, while I got off work at 6 p.m. and stopped by the grocery store to pick up dinner. He forgot anniversaries, but could name every update to some online game. He couldn't boil noodles, but could talk non-stop for 3 hours about the financial model of the metaverse. When friends asked why I stayed, I forced a smile and said something about patience. The truth? I was just scared to admit I'd given up on hope. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. I didn't love the Logan he had become. I loved the idea of the man I hoped he would grow into. One time, I suggested he take on a part-time job, just to help out with gas money or breakfast groceries. He scoffed. "Isla, do you know anyone who got rich working part-time?" I stayed quiet. I was starting to fear myself, afraid that I had gotten used to being undervalued. Used to carrying the weight of this relationship like a failing business I refused to let go because I'd already invested too much. I never asked him to be a CEO. I just wanted a partner, not a grown child clinging to the title of undiscovered artist. But Logan believed he was doing the more important work, laying the foundation for the future. And the one paying for every brick in that foundation, and watching it never grow a single floor, was me. Everything began to shift on a Monday afternoon. I had just finished a 10-hour hospital shift when Logan texted, "Come home early, I want to have a serious talk." The message was short, without a single emoji, which was strange coming from a man who used to say goodnight with 8 heart icons. When I walked in, he was already sitting at the dining table, hair neatly combed, wearing the blue shirt I'd bought him for his birthday 3 years ago. He stared at the wood grain instead, his fingers tracing invisible lines. "We need to stop," he said, his voice eerily calm. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to take the words seriously. "You're kidding, right? Stop what? Did you just land $1 million deal and forget to tell me?" Logan didn't laugh. His eyes were so serious it chilled me. "You're not really contributing to this relationship anymore, Isla. You come home tired, leave your stuff everywhere, let dishes pile up, this house is always a mess, and I feel like I have to carry all the emotional load." I froze. The man who had never once taken out the trash was telling me he carried the emotional weight? The man I used to serve meals next to his computer while he was designing a personal brand logo was scolding me for not maintaining our living space? I steadied myself before taking the seat across from him. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm serious," Logan said, his tone sharp. "I need space to grow, to rediscover myself. You make me feel limited." I gave a tight smile. "How? By paying every bill so you could spend 6 years finding yourself?" But the story didn't end there. In the days that followed, Logan started acting like the house belonged to him. He told me, very casually, that maybe I could move in with my mom for a while, so we both have space. He even suggested, or you could rent a studio in Tempe, it's closer to your job anyway. I let the silence stretch, curious how far he'd run with his fantasy. 3 days later, I saw him tape a living room redesign plan to the fridge. He said he wanted to open up the space for TikTok videos. I looked at his scribbled blueprint, his so-called concept sketch. I didn't say a word. The next day, I overheard him on the phone booking an appointment with a dog trainer. When I asked, he smiled. I'm thinking of adopting a husky. Now that no one's stopping me, I can take care of it properly. The tipping point came Friday night. I walked into the old study where I kept my reading desk and saw it had been cleared out. Every bookshelf, the printer, even the photo of my grandparents had vanished. In their place, a gaming desk, blue LED lights, and a sign reading, Logan's Studio, New Era. What did you do with my stuff? I asked quietly. I stored it. That room is my creative office now. You can use the bedroom to work if you want, I don't mind. There was nothing left to say. I turned and walked out, leaving the memories of my family behind, buried under his latest obsession. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I felt something inside me snap. Like when you finally realize you've been holding onto a rope for too long and all that's left in your hand is illusion. Logan thought I would pack up and leave, thought he had reclaimed his space. But he forgot one crucial fact. That house was never his. I started putting my plan together. Not a word of protest, not a sigh of frustration. I gave him nothing to react to. Instead, I poured him coffee every morning, still bought the toothpaste he liked, still pretended to smile when he went on and on about his latest personal branding strategy. It wasn't forgiveness, it was observation. Logan seemed more confident than ever. He ordered sushi delivery using my account, sat in the middle of the living room like he was live streaming to millions. He even emailed some old classmates inviting them to check out the new space, by which he meant my house. I didn't bring up the fact that I was still paying the monthly mortgage. I didn't react when he posted a story on Instagram that said, "New apartment, new journey." Yes, he called it a new apartment, referring to the house I had lived in for nearly 10 years. I needed him to sink deeper into the illusion. And Logan was very good at that. On Saturday night, while Logan was adjusting lights for a test shoot, I quietly called a locksmith. The locksmith agreed to come early Monday morning. I texted back, the earlier, the better. That morning, I took half a day off work. Logan was still asleep on the couch. After staying up until 3 a.m. testing his new setup, I stepped outside to meet the locksmith and pointed at the old lock. "I'll replace everything." In less than an hour, the front door, back door, and garage all had new keys. I stood in the middle of the living room, in a house strangely silent, and felt something very close to peace. Around 10:30, Logan shuffled in wearing an oversized hoodie, holding a glass of water. "You're not going to work?" he asked. I slowly turned the teacup in my hand. I took the morning off. Had some things to do. He didn't think much of it, just turned away, still moving like someone who thought he had full control of the space. I waited until he was typing away in his so-called creative studio, then stood at the door and said it plainly. "I had all the locks changed this morning." He turned, frowning. "What?" "I changed all the locks. This house isn't yours, Logan. It's in my name. I'm the sole owner." He shot to his feet like he'd been electrocuted. "Wait, what are you talking about?" "I'm saying," I cut him off, each word clear, "you have until the end of the day to pack your things and leave. If you need a printed copy of the property deed, I can get it now." Logan froze. "You can't do this." "I can't?" I gave a soft smile. "Are you sure about that?" "We've lived together for 6 years. I helped build this life." "Yes. I've lived here for 6 years." "And you've lived off my money the whole time. A life I built, paid for. Every dime. And now, you're about to move out of it." He stumbled backward, bumping into the table, eyes wide with panic. "Wait, Isla, we can talk. What are you doing? Are you really throwing me out on the street?" I folded my arms. "No one's throwing you out. I'm just reclaiming something that was never yours." He started to say something, then stopped. Those once passionate eyes were now filled with panic. He sank into a chair, head in his hands. No more excuses. Later that afternoon, he knocked on my door and asked, "Can you help me with a few things?" I replied with one sentence. "I think you're good at figuring things out on your own. You said you carried this household, didn't you?" By 8 p.m., Logan walked out with 3 bags. No goodbye. I sat in the living room, turned on the warm yellow light, and heard the wind brushing across the porch. I thought it would end when Logan walked out the door, carrying 3 bags and a bruised ego. 2 days later, I got a message from Sadie, a former coworker of Logan's I had met a few times at gatherings. The message was short. "What happened between you two? Logan's saying some pretty awful stuff." Before I could reply, Sadie sent a screenshot. It was a long Facebook post from Logan, written as if he were the victim of emotional betrayal. For 6 years, I sacrificed my personal life to support the woman I loved, only to be kicked out of the very home I helped build. She didn't just use my love. She used her financial power to erase me from everything. This isn't a breakup story. It's a story of betrayal. I laughed out loud. He was boldly spinning a narrative completely opposite from reality. Then on the 4th day after the breakup, I got a call from an unknown number. A soft female voice said, "Hi, I'm Elise. I wasn't sure if I should call, but I just found out some things about Logan and I think you should know." Turns out, Elise had met Logan at a creative networking event in downtown Phoenix, just weeks before he broke things off with me. Elise had no idea he lived with a girlfriend until she saw one of my social media posts. When she confronted him, Logan dodged the truth, telling her I was just an old friend who asked him to house sit while I was out of town. Elise's voice still trembled. "He said the house belonged to both of you, but that you were jealous and always tried to shut him down." I didn't blame Elise. She had been strung along by the same kind of lies I had tolerated for years. A few days later, I heard she cut off contact. And then, like clockwork, Logan reappeared online, this time posting from a coffee shop with the caption, "Starting over, stronger, clearer, no more being controlled." That last line nearly made me spit out my coffee. But that wasn't the end. Mutual friends who had stayed silent began reaching out, not out of concern for me, but because they'd heard several different versions of the story from Logan. To some, he was the kind-hearted guy who got dumped for no reason. To others, he was a business partner tricked into signing away his rights. One person told me Logan claimed I had secretly changed the name on the deed behind his back, when in fact I'd been the sole owner since day one. One of my close friends, Michael, had grown tired of the rumors, so he asked Logan directly at a group hangout. He later told me the exchange word for word. "Logan, the house was in Isla's name from the start. You never paid a dime. Why are you making it sound like something was stolen from you?" Logan laughed and shrugged. "You think those things are invisible? I invested time, emotions. No one understands the effort I put in." Michael simply looked at him and replied, "Adults invest with actions, not words." That night, I received messages from several old friends, people who had once believed Logan's vague explanations. They apologized for only hearing one side and said they hoped I was okay. I didn't reply to everyone, I just sent the same sentence back to all of them. The truth always exists, even when it's dressed in beautiful lies. The last I heard of Logan, he was crashing at a college friend's place in Mesa, a friend he used to call a mediocre conformist. And that so-called creative studio, I turned it into my morning yoga space, quiet, open, and free of delusional echoes in the walls. I used to think I wasn't someone who liked making noise, but when silence is used to distort the truth, I knew it was time to speak up. That morning, I sat in front of my laptop with a cup of coffee and a thick folder. I wasn't angry, wasn't bitter. I just felt it was necessary to clarify things, once, firmly, and with facts. I created a Facebook group chat and added nearly 20 mutual acquaintances. From Logan's friends who had heard he'd been kicked out to a few of his relatives I knew still had a soft spot for me. After typing a brief intro, I started attaching each item. A photo of the house deed showing only my name, signed in January of 2015, 3 months before Logan moved in. 6 years worth of utility bills. Electric, water, internet, all under my name. Not a single payment from Logan's account. The photos of car contracts, insurance, and even the receipt for the new refrigerator I bought last year, every cost covered by me. A short video clip from our home security camera where Logan once joked, "Living in my girlfriend's house, peak minimalist lifestyle." I ended the message with this: I'm not here to argue. I'm not blaming or insulting anyone. I just want to clarify, because I won't let someone rewrite my story with fiction. The message sent. Within 5 minutes, the replies flooded in. Some reacted with the shocked emoji. A few of Logan's old friends immediately left the group, probably out of embarrassment. But most messaged me privately, expressing their surprise. One of them, Marcus, Logan's best friend from college, wrote, "I really didn't know it was like this. Thanks for showing the full picture." I closed the screen, not reading more. Next on the list, clearing out the clutter. When Logan left, he had abandoned a lot of things, from his gaming chair and headphones to the electronic drum set he bought during his "I'm gonna be a musician" phase. I called a local charity that supports students and young adults starting out on their own. Within 2 hours, a volunteer team showed up at my house. I handed over each item with a quiet sense of relief. As they carried the last gaming chair out to the van, I simply said, "That one saw a lot of use, but it never produced anything that lasted. Hopefully, the next person does better with it." That afternoon, I dug through my old email and found the contact info for Logan's parents, Richard and Kathleen Morgan. They were in their 60s, living in Flagstaff. I'd met them a few times. They were kind, polite, and unwavering in their belief in their son. I wrote them a respectful letter, not a rant, not a takedown, just a summary of the truth, along with a few supporting documents. At the end of the letter, I wrote, "I know you once believed Logan was just trying to find his way. I believe that too, but sometimes silence enables the wrong story to grow. I don't want to end this with resentment, but I also won't let someone turn me into a background character in my own life." There was no expectation. Still, 2 days later, an email from Mrs. Kathleen arrived. "You don't owe us an explanation, but I thank you for offering one. Logan used to be a good kid, but we've been too lenient. I won't make excuses for him anymore. Thank you for holding on to your kindness even when everything went too far. Wishing you peace, you deserve it." I read that line, "You don't owe us an explanation," over and over. And I realized maybe, finally, I had just paid back a debt. To myself. A week after our mutual friends quietly stopped joining Logan's online hangouts, tired of hearing his twisted retellings, I got a phone call from Nora, my older sister who lives in Santa Fe and doesn't fall for nonsense easily. "I shall leave. You won't believe this, but Logan just texted me asking for money." I set my pen down. "How much?" $3,000. He said he was being wrongfully removed from his home due to a technicality and needed money for a lawyer to fight for justice. I gripped the phone. "And what did you do?" Nora exhaled. "I didn't say no, but before transferring anything, I asked him to sign a loan agreement with clear repayment terms and submit his vehicle title as collateral. I even had a lawyer friend notarize it." I couldn't help but smile. Logan might have fooled people's emotions, but not a financial strategist like my sister. "He actually signed it?" I asked, still in disbelief. "I think he's desperate," my sister said. When I asked for his car registration as collateral, he sent it within 5 minutes. Something inside me sank. Logan hadn't come to any realization. He was just scrambling to hold on to the last scraps of his illusion. But he didn't stop there. 2 days later, Sadie, the one who had first sent me the screenshot of Logan's Facebook post, messaged me again. He just launched a GoFundMe campaign. I clicked the link and nearly couldn't believe my eyes. The page was titled, "Help Me Reclaim My Stolen Home." Below was a long description claiming that Logan had been stripped of his home by a girlfriend who secretly changed legal documents, that he had invested time, money, and love into building that home, and now had nothing left but an old car and a broken heart. The more I read, the colder I felt. Logan wasn't just embellishing, he was outright fabricating. He even used a photo of my house's front porch as the campaign's cover image. There were a few sympathetic comments, a handful of shares. The total donations, $780. The way Logan slipped into the victim role, effortless, convincing, sent a cold wave through me. I let things unfold on their own, holding back. Someone else, however, decided it was time to act. 2 days later, the GoFundMe was taken down. Reason: fraudulent activity reported by a family member. I had a good idea who it was. That morning, I received an email from Logan's mother, Kathleen. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. When I saw the fundraising page, I was stunned. Logan has been sleeping in his car in front of our house all week, refusing to come inside. Every night he tells a different story to every relative who calls. Last night, I overheard him on the phone with his cousin, claiming you made him sign over the house while he was sick. I can't stay silent anymore. I reported the campaign, and I just told my husband, Logan is no longer allowed to camp in our yard. I read the email, feeling a mix of sorrow and relief. Some truths don't need to be shouted. Sometimes, people trip over their own lies. That evening I drove past Logan's parents' old neighborhood. Just like Kathleen had said, Logan's old SUV was parked quietly on the curb, back seats laid flat, folded blankets, a few cardboard boxes, and a small sign taped to the rear window. Temporarily, please don't knock. I drove past without slowing down. Like watching a man disappear into a path only he could justify. I saw Mrs. Kathleen again, one Sunday morning at a small cafe near Tempe's main square. She picked an outdoor table under a citrus tree like she wanted everything to be out in the open now. She looked older, but her eyes no longer held that uncertain edge I remembered. When I arrived, she stood and gave me a gentle hug, then sat without small talk. She began. I'm not here to defend my son, I'm here to apologize, truly. I stayed quiet. Not from anger, but because some apologies deserve silence to stay whole. You know, she continued. Last week, Logan was still sleeping in his car, right in front of our lawn. My husband let it happen and I just watched from the window. Every morning he'd leave, then return with a new story. Someone was investing in his latest idea. A lawyer was preparing paperwork to reclaim the house. A new girlfriend was coming to pick him up. I looked at her, tilting my head. Did you believe him? She let out a quiet, sad laugh. At first I wasn't sure, but on Wednesday I overheard him call his aunt, my sister-in-law, and say you forced him to sign over the house while he was mentally unstable. I bit my lip but said nothing. That was the moment, she said. I walked outside, opened the car door, and handed him an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter stating that from that day forward we were changing the locks, disconnecting all Wi-Fi, electricity, and water access, and that he had 72 hours to move in with Uncle Rob, who already had a job waiting for him at the wood shop. I was stunned. Logan agreed? She nodded, eyes fixed on her cooling tea. Not because he wanted to work, but because he had nowhere else left to go. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out an old photo album. The leather cover was scuffed, the corners worn thin. This, she said, placing it on the table. I think you should have it. I hesitated. Are you sure? It's full of the moments Logan once had, before grand dreams started blinding him to reality. His 25th birthday. You baked the cake. The day you both moved in together. I still remember. It rained that day, but you two were laughing like sunshine in June. I flipped through the pages. Logan in a wrinkled button-up shirt hugging the neighbor's dog. Logan beside me at a Christmas party, holding a mug of cocoa I had made. Logan at his laptop. When I thought he was writing a YouTube script, but he was just gaming. I kept these, she said, her voice lowering, not to preserve sadness, but to remember that people can have beautiful pasts and still choose to leave them behind. I turned toward her. Do you still hope he'll change? It took her a few seconds, but then she slowly shook her head. I only hope he won't hurt anyone else again. We sat in silence for a while. The drip of coffee, the crunch of dry leaves beneath passing feet, it all filled the quiet between two women who had once believed in the same man, in different ways. When we stood to part, she hugged me again, this time tighter. Thank you for giving him a chance. And thank you for showing us the limits of love. That night, when I placed the album on the bookshelf in my home office, the room that once was Logan's creative studio, it felt like a weight lifted off my chest. At last, the truth had been seen. And I, after everything, still had myself intact and strong enough to begin a new chapter. In real life, there are people like Isla, quietly carrying, believing, giving everything they have, only to be pushed out of the very life they helped build. But it's in those moments of rejection that they rediscover their true worth. Isla's story isn't just a wake-up call for anyone being taken advantage of in the name of love. It's a reminder, kindness is not the same as submission. And when the truth comes to light, the one who was dismissed often walks away with the deepest peace. What do you think of Isla's decision and how she handled Logan? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about love, family, and growing up.